Right, exciting times. Time to start putting bits back together. So the last thing I took out was the spindle lock, so that's the first thing I'm going to put back in. That's all been cleaned up. I've greased the central shaft, I've greased the thread, and what I'm going to do now, just before I assemble it, is I'm just going to apply some grease to each one of these moving parts of the lock. And put a liberal coating on here, it doesn't matter, it'll it won't do it any harm. And then we should be able to just slide that, excuse me, straight in. I'm just trying to line up the flats in the right place, or somewhere near the right place, to allow me to knit the spindle up. There we go, that's that done. So the next job is the spindle that I've just rebuilt. Needs to be a final wipe over. I'll put some grease on the rack. I'm just trying to work out whether I need to put the pinion in first. I don't think I do, no I don't. So I'll put some grease on the rack, on the back of the spindle once I've cleaned it. And then I'll put a light coating of oil on the outside of the spindle itself, the quill itself. And then we'll slide that in. We'll nip it up with the lock that I've just put in to hold it in place. And then we'll insert the keyway in through the side. So I'll bring you back in a moment when we're ready to do that. So I've got my spindle ready. I've wound the head up to its highest position, and I'll reposition the camera in a moment when I come to the refitting. But just before we do that, I'm just going to use some more of this grease. I'm just going to put some grease basically into the rack. That's interesting to note, when I took this apart, this rack and pinion was absolutely bone dry. There was nothing on it. In fact, well, there was stuff on it. There was plenty of paint on the pinion, but I'm sure that's not a lubrication. More than enough. That'll work its way in when I put the pinion back in. So the next job is a light oil on the outside diameter of this, where it's going to go in, and I'll do that once I've repositioned the camera. I'll just reposition the camera first. Okay, we're back with the camera in a new position. So what I'm going to do now, and you might not be able to see all of this, apologies, I'm just going to basically give this spindle a coating of oil. Just bear with me. There we go. Right, the moment of truth. Is that head high enough? We shall see. No. It is now. I realise I'm going to be in the way, guys, apologies for that. This is quite a heavy job. Whew. Done. Right, what I didn't say there, I've refitted the rubber bump stop washer on the spindle, and I've also refitted the threaded collar that sits in the bottom to protect the bottom taper roller bearing. So that's the spindle kind of back in. I'm just going to now fit the key. I'm just going to apply a bit of grease. What I did do with this key, as I've turned, it was all just rough on the end. I've just cleaned it up and turned a fresh face on the bottom, so it's going to make a good engagement in the side of the quill. So we'll pop that in now. Put a bit of oil on the threads. Apologies, I know I'm in the way again. Let me just get an Allen key, looks like 5mm. Yeah, that's not... These T-grip Allen keys are really good, but there's times when you just need a normal one. Okay, so that's, I'm just touching the quill there, or I'm either in the quill or I'm in the groove, and I'm not sure which one. So we'll just have a look. Groove now. So if that's right, that should stop at the bottom, which it does. Yep. Okay. I just need to, there's a lock nut on that key bolt there that I just need to try and find something that's going to fit in there. A socket's not going to do it. I have no idea what I'm going to tighten that up with. There's just not enough clearance to get anything around that at all. I might have to have a bit of a play with that. Anyway, we'll just lock it back up with that for now. So there we go, that's spindle back in, key back in, and spindle lock back in. What I'm going to do now is just give this bottom end a final wipe over and an oil, just to stop any rust while I'm carrying on with the rest of the build. And then I think the next thing, well, I'll need to go back and look at my video, but I think it's pinioning next. and then the handle and fine feed unit will be going on after that, and I'll bring you back when I'm doing that. Okay, so we've got the pinion all cleaned up, all the paint off it. This was absolutely just covered in white paint, the pinion gear there. I've lightly oiled up all of the shaft, and I've put some grease on this bearing diameter at this end. And the reason I've used grease, I've trial fitted it back in, and it's quite a sloppy fit is this bearing in the casting, so a bit of grease might just take up some of that slop. I don't know, we'll try it. So I'll give that a jiggle around, and hopefully that should go in there. Okay, so I've got the fine feed unit here. What I have done is I've cleaned and greased up the worm and worm wheel. So that's all been cleaned and re-greased. So we're just going to pop that on now. Now there's nothing that actually dowels this in position, it's just the screw holes, so we'll just get the best fit of both before we nip it up. That's it. And then the very last job, to fit that, you need to remove the key that's in the end of the shaft here. So I'm just going to replace that key, and I'm just going to bed it in with a bit of grease, and that will just help hold it in place on the shaft. So that's the key refitted. And while I'm at it, the grease, I'm just going to apply a thin coat in this clutch, and it is a thin coat, I don't want too much in here really. About the same thickness of grease as we had of paint before I stripped it will probably about do. Just take the excess off. And that's ready for the handle to be fitted now. Which looks like it's going to be fun to fit. I'm just wondering actually if that will sit in there. That'll be easier. And the final thing is the hand wheel. Just a bit of oil on that thread. hopefully that feels okay. Doesn't feel like it's twisting or anything when I'm tightening it. So let's release the lock and see what happens. Obviously I've got no spring pressure at the minute. Yeah, that's locked up on that on this, so that's not an even, something's not quite even on there. Okay, that all works. Let's just check this. So the fine feed all works as well. It's nice. Well, it would be. It's because the spring pressure, I think. It's got no assistance and it's just locking up on the worm and worm wheel. That's all that is. Yeah. Let's just undo that again. Yeah, that's that noise is just the grease on the rack. That'll bed in over time. Right, so there we are. That's got the bulk of the spindle rebuilt. Apart from that spring, I don't know whether to attack that now or leave it and leave it until tomorrow. Don't know, I might have a go in a minute. I need to look out some leather gloves. Somebody gave me a tip. Apologies, I've forgotten who it was. One of my subscribers, and said when you're refitting one of those coil springs on the side, always wear some decent leather gloves, because if it lets go it'll shred your fingers, and that's a really, really good tip. You know, when you look at it, it's got grooves in the outside, so I'll summon up the courage to fit that spring. I knew that was going to be difficult when I stripped it, but we'll give it a go and see what happens. Right, round 3. What I've done there is I've just tapped all of that spring work back down inside the housing now with a brass drift. So I think we might be in business this time. Famous last words. So let's have another go. Right, well, we're on. I have no idea how much I need to turn this, but we'll turn it a bit and then see if we can secret, is it? Right, well, what I'm going to do now, it's kind of on. I'm going to fit this. And then hopefully I can control the amount that it comes back off when I'm trying to adjust it. Whoa. Right, we'll zoom out. And we'll just see what that's like. Well, it's not dropping under its own weight, that's a good start. Oh, that's because I've got the fine feed engaged, that's why. Still not dropping under its own weight. Well, there's a bit of return there, so now that's telling me that it's at one end of the spring. It's nowhere near because it's letting it drop. So we do need a bit more. So let's put that right up to the top. Just lock that back up. Now then, let's see if this idea of mine's going to work. That's going to let it come far enough off to allow me to turn it, but keep it on the register. Here we go, right. That's about half a turn. It's getting better. It needs a bit more. Let's try that. Oh yes. What a bonkers design that is. Bit of head scratching needed, I think, and possibly a bit of research on the internet. I'm wondering now whether I've got these washers the right side, or whether they're supposed to be on the inside. I can't remember when I took it apart. I'll have a look at some photographs, but that's certainly not right as it is. I'll do some research and come back. But at least I know I can get it fitted and it's kind of working. I just need to get it to the point where that screw stays absolutely tied to the shaft the whole time, so that whenever the shaft moves, the screw moves with it. Because what's happening at the minute is the shaft's moving, the screw's staying static for some periods of the movement, which is causing it to either tighten up or go too loose. And when it's going too loose, the whole bell housing's then dropping off the pins that hold it in place against the spring tension. So something's not quite right there. I'll go away and do a bit of research on that, but at least it's kind of on and fitted, and I know I can get it back on, so that's the main thing. I'll bring you back when we're doing something else, or when we're fixing that, once I've learned a bit more about it. Well, I'm back, guys, and I've got good news and bad news. I've actually gone back to the manual that I got with the mill, and I've looked at the exploded diagram. I don't know if this is going to focus well enough to show it, but here you can see the spring, the bell housing, a large washer, a small washer, and then, well, it would help if I was showing it. So yeah, spring, bell housing, large washer, small washer, thumb screw. So the good news is I've got it all the right way around. The bad news is it's not working. Something's not right with that. Right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give this screw the same treatment as we gave the other one. We're going to put some wraps of PTFE on it, so that it's tighter in the shaft. In fact, I might be able to get those washers on afterwards. I'm doing this off camera again, apologies. I don't think there's anything special about these washers. Maybe there is. That one's got marks on it, I think, that would suggest it was on the other way around last time. So let's try that as well. Right, that's a better fit in the end of that shaft now. There you go, fixed. PTFE tape, a million uses, all of them good. Excellent. Right, I will move on to the next thing, which I believe is dropping the head back down. I've got this bracket thing to fit that's got all it does. The only purpose it serves, this bracket that sits around here, the red one, is for the rod that goes up in here for the depth indicator, and I will refit it for now, but I think what I'm going to do longer term is I'm going to buy myself some aluminium plate, and I'm going to make myself a different quill plate there that's going to allow me to put a digital readout on this quill, and also multiple other uses. So I'm going to give it some thought, but I'm going to design a new quill plate to sit on here and make it out of aluminium, probably 10-15mm thick aluminium plate, something like that. Split it so that it will fit on with a bolt at the back to nip up like a flexure, and then design into the plate lots of other things that I might want to put on the spindle, such as clocks, the sort of DRO or digital readout scale for the quill. So that's a future project, but for now we'll refit the old one, but I think I'm going to do that near the end, just before I put this front cover plate back on. I'll leave it as it is for now. So we'll drop the head, and the next job really now is to start filling up the gearbox with shafting, bearings and all that kind of thing. So I'll bring you back when we're doing that. It would be 5mm because that's the only one that's not in the wrap. Where's that gone then? Well, that's interesting. Bear with me. Oh dear, oh dear. You are a messy